Hello everyone and welcome to the Dice Commando YouTube channel. I'm Andrew with you here as always. This is the Commando Cast, a video cast about all things Star Wars Destiny. This video and others like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. Please show your support with a like and subscribe, and be sure to hit the bell notification icon so you don't miss any new videos. If you want to get involved with the channel, consider becoming a channel member. There are many benefits to channel membership, including access to our Discord, exclusive deck tech and strategy videos, and the opportunity to help create channel content. I want to sincerely thank all our channel members, as I truly couldn't do this without your support. You guys rock. Go Commando. Hello everyone, welcome to Dice Commando and the Commando Cast. I'm Andrew with you here as always. Thank you very much for joining me today. So since the death of Destiny from the FFG side and the community taking the reins, specifically the Renewed Hope Committee, everyone's had an opinion on how it should go, what it should look like, whether we should reuse dice and all that, right? So what I wanted to talk about today actually was my dream scenario of if I was in charge, what I would be doing as far as rotation and everything going forward. Hey guys, welcome back. As you can see, I'm channeling my inner Cuenca today, right? But the truth is, it's just really hot in here, and if I have the fan on in the room, it makes too much noise to make good recordings. So I didn't want you all to suffer through that. So instead, you get to look at the guns, right? But no, so what I wanted to do today is, just kind of talk about, what things would look like in terms of rotation. And, there's no doubt in my mind that Renewed Hope, we're going to see many, many sets in the future, right? So it's time to start having that discussion of what's rotation going to look like, what would the structure be, and all that. So I kind of wanted to give what my, like I said, my dream scenario, what that would look like. And this has been somewhat of a sore subject across basically the entire community. It seems everyone has a different opinion, and no one's really actually willing to really sit down and listen to each other, right? I mean, a lot of people are fighting about the dice, fighting about infinite versus standard versus new cards versus old cards, and so on. And I think the scenario that I've come up with actually addresses a lot of the concerns on many sides. So, and I mean, this is what I think would work really well for the community. So let's see if you guys agree. And I think it's going to be very different than. Well, it's very different than what it looks like today. But first, let's of course, just remind everybody what I'm showing across the entire screen right now is what the standard format rotation scheme really looks like today, right? So as you guys know, we have the blocks, we have Legacies block, Convergence block, and so on. And when that set 7, the G set in this case, as is on the graphic, right? That when that 7th set drops, it bumps the entire block out, right, including the starter decks, whatever draft kits associated with that 2-player sets. Now remember, we're not going to necessarily have 2-player sets and draft kits going forward. So, if we were to just maintain the current rotation type schedule, we would have roughly, well, we'd have a maximum of 6 sets in standard legal or whatever we call that at that time. So here is the proposal. I'm going to flash it up in just a second. The proposal that I have changes this scheme pretty much entirely. So what I'm showing right now is my proposed standard format rotation scheme. And what I'm proposing that we do is that we have a core set of roughly 600 cards that are 100% existing, and I call them real cards. And this core set would be permanent. And the rotation, as it were, actually rotates around this core set, right? So instead of having rotation by blocks, you would just have set 1, 2, or in this case, set A, B, C would be legal, and when set D comes in, set A would pop out. So minimize it now, but why do I think this is a cool scheme? And why did I just sit on the numbers? Why did I decide on the numbers that I did? And to be fair, maybe it's 4 that are legal instead of 3, whatever it may be, right? Again, I don't know what size sets the Renewed Hope Committee are really committed to, and that would of course make it factor here. But the first thing I like here is that having the core set be completely 100% existing real cards addresses the concerns that some in the community have of not wanting to print, not wanting to do the dice, and so on. Right? So if those people decide that that is such a big task, something that they so vehemently don't want to do, they don't have to do it, because the core set that would be developed, and again, I'm not saying I'm going to be the one to develop the core set. We would need to come up with that, renewed hope, need to do that, whomever, right? But the point would be, in that core set, there would still be legal decks. So today, I could go make my Jin Cassian deck, and that Jin Cassian deck would be legal. That's just an example, right? But that Jin Cassian deck could be legal for the end of time. So if my buddy 5 years down the road is like, we're on set 26, he comes, he's like, hey, can we jam some games? I could still go in the closet, dust off that Jin Cassian box, and we could still play, and I would have a standard legal deck, right? So that's really what I like about this concept. And again, remember, those cards are FFG, they're real, quote unquote, right? So it really assuages, I think, a lot of those concerns. Now, I want to be very clear. The reason I'm proposing this is not just to assuage certain individuals, right? That's not where I'm going here. But I think that when we have new players coming into the game, they're going to be buying real cards, right? I mean, for the most part, they're going to run across some set on eBay or something like that. They're going to come in, and then they're going to find out that none of their cards are able to be standard legal. I think that's unfortunate. So I think this scheme presents a really unique opportunity for us to kind of take the best of both worlds, right? So talking about the core set now, why is 600 cards what I decided on? I think, and again, it's about 600 cards. Maybe it's a little less, maybe it's a little more. But the current standard format is 6 sets at roughly 175 cards apiece. The reason that it's 175 on average because we have some sets that are higher, some sets are lower. 160 is the standard, and then you have the additional cards for the starter decks. And then all of these also have supplemental. So those supplemental kits, draft kits, and stuff, it roughly comes out to be about 175%. Right? So that puts us at about 1,000-ish cards that are legal and standard using today's method. Right, and that assumes that a same set size or equivalent backfill, right? And remember, of course, that draft kits aren't legal any longer. I mean, we won't have draft kits, right? Because we're not drafting it. Like, there's no packs to draft, right? So draft kits aren't a thing. Supplemental sets like 2-player or transformations, right, won't be a thing going forward. So if we put it at 600, that allows roughly 3 to 4 renewed hope player created sets to be legal at any time, which is roughly a block-ish worth of sets, just not in terms of card quantity, but in terms of number quantity. Because we also know that the sets that renewed hope and that we're looking at are likely going to be smaller sets, right? I mean, that's 100 cards-ish, maybe even 50 cards, I don't know, right? So that's why I chose that 600 number. Now, if in reality Renewed Hope's looking at doing like 30 card sets or something like that, then obviously we need to change the structure and it'd have to be more sets or whatever it may be, right? But that's how I came up with the 600 number. Yeah. So again, I'm just showing the totals right now, right? But it comes out to there's 10,086 unique cards legal and standard right now. So a little, but again, I'm just saying it's roughly 1,000. So that's where that number came from. Furthermore, I believe that the 2-player game should always be legal. 100% of it should be included in the core set. There's a ton of that product still out there, cheap. It still remains the easiest point of entry for new players. Send them that way. Having people pick up the set and having nothing be standard legal stinks, right? Because then they picked up a game, they played it at the kitchen table, they said, wow, this is really cool, I want to learn more about it, and they find out that they can't use it. They're just going to go back to the kitchen table. They're not going to come join us in the community, right? So in this core set, 100%, we have to have the core set legal, or the 2-player game legal. So advantages of my proposed system are that there's always a baseline of real product that stays in the game. Those don't want to have to deal with the new stuff, making stickers, they don't have to. And if people want to take a mental break for a bit, like let's say, okay, we've been playing this game for 8 years, I need to take a year off or something. When they come back 2 years later, they still have playable stuff, right? They could still show up, or maybe they just decide, I haven't played in 6 months. I'm going to go to the local Destiny tournament today. I'm going to sit down and play with my buddy today. They've got something. They don't have to go print out a bunch of cards and label stuff, and there's really no barrier for them to do that. There's the barrier to reentry is zero, right? So that's the advantage of this. From a design side, right, the advantage to design is that having a core set removes the need for reprints to supply the base cards, right? Your field medics, stuff like that would be in the core set. So right, because if Renewed Hope today is operating under the same rotation structure that we have now, eventually they're going to have to reprint your electroshocks, your field medics, your whatevers, right? Your misleads, whatever it may be, is eventually going to have to get rotated or reprinted, which means that they have to include them in the sets. If we do this and we create the core set, they don't have to do that, right? They can just and then that improves their design time because they don't have to worry about other stuff. They don't have to worry about making new cards, making that part of the set. They can just focus on the new stuff, and then maybe they do. Maybe they move to 30 or 50 card sets and something instead of something like that, right? So I think it gives advantages to the design team as well. Furthermore, looking at this rotation structure again, another thing that it brings is that cards will rotate out faster, or I should say sets will rotate out faster, which allows the design team to be more nimble, if you will, and course correct faster. Furthermore, since there's no longer a block, they can be more fluid with their themes and stuff like that, right? They can focus on themes in a set instead of having to worry about an entire block together. And knowing that the set they release today, I mean, to be frank, if the set they release today, they screw it up, instead of going back and course correcting and fixing that and trying to change it and go through errata, they could just quickly dump 2 new sets and kick it out, right? And then we don't have to worry about it anymore because it's gone. It's gone forever, right? So I think that'd be really neat. Disadvantages, though, right? Potential boredom, for sure. I mean, the core set, there could be a lot of people who just entrench and only play the core set stuff. However, I would argue that those people were going to probably not engage in the new standard anyway, and now we still have them as part of the community. So I don't know if that is a full disadvantage, but certainly potential boredom of everything out there it's absolutely fair. The other disadvantage, this is a real one to players, right? Core set cards will become very high demand, right? Those dice are going to wear out. Cards are going to be harder to find. The dice, specifically, the dice wearing out is going to be a real thing, right? So whatever gets decided to put in that core set, right, is those prices are going to go up, and the demand for those will increase, right? So that's a disadvantage of the system. Design is, although to be fair, if everyone's using stickered and stuff dice, you could, I would think, if I'm using half a deck with stickers in it, it should be okay to make stickers of the core set die too, right? So actually, I guess I can counter that concern. But if you want the real product, the prices are still going to be higher. From a design perspective, there's more disadvantages to design doing it this way. It could be quite restrictive from a design standpoint, being roped into a non-fluctuating baseline, right? Knowing that there's always the Kylo 2 deck out there could be hard for them to focus. For example, we know that set 11, they've said publicly that they're trying to focus on mono decks. I'm making the argument that 2-player set should always be legal, which means that Kylo is always going to be a problem. So that is a type of design. I mean, that is a huge disadvantage to that type of thing, right? That's actually a perfect example of the type of disadvantage that they have to face. Furthermore, we would need to commit to leaving the core set as is to a certain extent, and not trying to change the core set to accommodate design needs. That doesn't mean we can't ever change the core set. Like at some point you're going to need to, right? Like I get that and I acknowledge that. But what we can't do is go back and change. We need to design around the core set and not change the core set to fit our design, right? Because it's like a game of telephone where A goes to B and all of a sudden you're at Z and it looks nothing like the beginning, right? So we just need to be very careful from that, and we need to commit to it and hold to it. So that is a disadvantage there, is that they could be potentially reined in by that. Okay. So next, and this is the big question, what's in the core set? And here's the real question: who decides and on what? Again, in this core set, I want it to be cards from all FFG made Destiny sets, so to be infinite. right? Be infinite format, right? I want there to be cards from all blocks in there, right? People should be able to, I mean, we can choose the best of what we have today, make that core set, and then design around it, right? So we don't say standard as of today makes the core set, becomes infinite, right? That's how I think this would work best. It gives us the biggest card pool as it exists today. We can select the best of the best and go from there. And then as I was just kind of cursorily going through this, right, if we really actually ask ourselves, like if we really reflect on ourselves, right, if we really go through the sets and go through it, are there really even 600 real cards in, or there not? Are there 600 cards in all of Destiny that are actually worth being in the set, right? Like it might actually be less than that if we actually start going through it, right? So, because, you know, I mean, how many worthless, I mean, everything's a matter of perspective, I grant you that, right? But how many uncommons and commons really never saw, I mean, even rares, right, really never saw play, right? If we were to go through and just automatically, regardless of emotion or tactical or even tactical knowledge, just go through and cross out the cards that are just not good, we might automatically just hit 600, right, if we look at the whole infinite. So that would be an interesting exercise that, no, I have not done entirely, but you start looking about it and you're like, man, how many worthless rare upgrades do I have from Awakenings block? Well, especially Awakenings block, right? But even think of Legacies block, like, I don't know, the one that comes to mind right now is like Jedi Training Staff and, you know, stuff like that. We could just go and no one would ever miss it. And we might end up, I mean, if we go through and do that activity, we could very well end up with less than 600, right? So maybe that solves the number problem on its own. We, of course, then toss design limiting cards aside, right? There's no reason to have a restricted list at all when we're the ones choosing what makes up the core set, right? I mean, that's another huge advantage here, right? We just kick out stuff that's been consistently problem cards over time, right? Delve, for example, Fist, Shadowcaster, Faithful Companions, right? Droids, etc. We can just drop them. I personally think we should drop diceless characters. I know that's a sore subject with people. I think we should drop diceless characters just because we've seen what cheap characters do to limiting design space. So I think that would be a good thing to go. And then it also allows us to remove the need for silver bullet type cards, right? We don't need DM if Shadowcaster's not around, right? Because that's the way it works. Is you have a problem, you print the silver bullet for it, and then one rotates out, the other one causes problems until it rotates out, and then by that time you've made a silver bullet for that, right? We get a one-shot stop at creating what we want, and we control everything around it. So anyway, I'm flashing it up one more time, just my rotation proposal, but that's the crazy idea I have that I'm bringing to the table today, guys, is that we should just throw out the current rotation format and change how we do rotation. And I think we can address a lot of concerns in the community, and I think we can solve a lot of problems and make things very easier for ourselves going forward if we do something to this extent. So anyway, that's just my take. I'm curious to hear what you guys are thinking about it. You know, keep the comments nice and civil when you're going back and forth with each other. But again, this is our thing for the taking, right? We can set this up for success. So anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. If nothing else, go Commando.